Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unlocked Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. It's my pleasure to be here with you guys today. I'm in a bit of a different location. I'm currently on travel with my family. So this morning I'm coming to you from the hinterland of the Gold Coast, and my very special guest today, Malene Bendtsen, comes to me all the way from Copenhagen in Denmark. So I'm super excited to talk with her this morning because what we're going to be talking about is how to prepare yourself for the new internet and how you're going to use Web3 as an author. So if you've been thinking about writing your own book, or perhaps you are already an author and you're thinking about writing multiple books, then today's show is absolutely for you. We're going to unlock a number of different things that you can do to help yourself become a published author and be able to do it all yourself without having to spend a whole load of money on an expensive publisher. We're also going to be talking about some of the new tools that have come out. So if you've been living under the rock over the last, few weeks, several weeks, or even the last couple of months, you won't know a lot about some of the new AI tools. And we're going to be sharing some of those with you this morning too. So welcome to the show, Malene. She comes to us. She's an author. She's a business strategist. She's worked with multiple experts, teachers, public speakers and freedom seekers all over the world, and she teaches them how to publish their own books. So I know that her expertise and experience are really going to help you guys today, and I'm going to share that to you in this 30-minute episode. So stay tuned. Welcome, Malene. It's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
You're welcome. Well, look, let's start with giving everybody a little bit of background, because I note that you have done a lot of stuff in terms of, writing books or helping others write their own books over the past number of years. Tell us a little bit about how you got into that.
Yeah, well, it's a unique story, definitely. So I have my background is not journalism or learning how to write at the university or something like that. I have a business background. So what
Mm-hmm.
happened was that at some point I quit that corporate career for a more free work life, and I packed my bags and I went to Peru to stay there
Wow.
for about my plan was to stay in Lima for 5 months and then travel a couple of months and then return. But within a month, I found myself the CEO of a self-publishing company in Lima. So that's where I learned the business from the inside. And when I had been there for about 2 years and it was time to go back to Denmark, I realized that there were my inbox was full of people who knew I had been traveling, who wanted to catch up, but also said, "We think you worked with books. Can you help us?" And so I realized that there was a special segment within entrepreneurs, and especially solo entrepreneurs, who have a teaching or speaking business. Either they teach in-person training in companies or they have online courses, and they all wanted to publish a book and they needed help for that. So that's how I got
And
started.
well, what a really interesting journey, and to go to Peru probably for something completely unrelated, and to come out of that, with a publishing business and company, is pretty amazing. And since then, obviously, you've helped loads and loads of people publish their own books, and you've sort of touched on this a little bit, that a lot of entrepreneurs and teachers and speakers and podcasters are all
Yes.
really interested in writing their own books. Why do you
Yes.
think that is? Like, what's so appealing about writing a book, particularly in today's day and age?
Yeah, well, definitely it's a way of stating your authority in a niche. It gives you credentials. And it both comes from the content itself, but it also comes from the fact that um it that you many people think it's difficult to publish a book, and they really
Mm.
appreciate when somebody makes the effort of sharing their knowledge in a book. Yeah, so it definitely comes from that hundreds of years of history, that books are important. It's difficult to get published, and it's difficult to write a book. We hear all these stories that it takes years, uh, but
Mm.
but it's not true, and especially not for solopreneurs or that segment that is teaching something, because they don't need to be creative to write a book. They have organized knowledge. They're already conveying the same message in different formats. So it's really
Yeah.
a matter of just putting that into a book format. So that perception that it's difficult, it's really not true. And with the new AI tools, it's even easier than it was before.
Is a very, very, I think where we're going is very exciting, particularly for this type of sector and entrepreneurship in general. You know, some of the new AI tools and blockchain technology and some of the other things that are coming out, it means that, you know, our future is looking vastly different from the last, you know, number of decades, where these
Yes.
things are becoming simpler, faster, easier for us to be able to write things like our own books. And like you say, there've been many years where you've always thought, gosh, it's hard to do that, man.
Yeah.
An author must be amazing, and it must have taken them ages to write that sort of thing. But with the
Yeah.
tools and with the type of the way and the method in which you teach, it becomes very, very simple for people to do that, doesn't it? And like you were
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
really simple for people to start to stamp their authority and create influence and authority very, very quickly, which
Yeah.
is a fantastic thing. Now, I know you've also written a book about the next gen book, so we might talk a little bit about that too. And towards the
Yes.
end of today's show, we'll allow everybody, well, I'll ask you where everybody can find that book, because I know by the time we get to the end of the show, they're going to be like chomping at the bit, wanting more information. And you know, given that you've written a book on this subject matter, I'm sure that that will be extremely useful for everybody. So hang about, everyone. We'll make sure that you get that link. So in terms of you know, self-publishing, because I know we've also turned a corner here. There was a lot of time, you know, we talked about how difficult it was to get yourself, firstly, to even sit down and write a book and try and
Yes.
figure out what should I put in it. And then you had to find yourself somebody, a publisher, who would actually be prepared to take your subject matter on, and
Yeah.
who could look at it and say, well, actually, yeah, this manuscript is pretty good. I'm prepared to back it. What's changed, and why is it so, you know, what has happened to make it so much simpler for people to self-publish these days?
Well, for quite a while, I actually thought that the big invention here would be print on demand. The fact that you can upload your print ready file to a platform online, and when somebody, it will create a book page for you. And when somebody buys your book, they will then print one book and send to that customer. So you didn't need to um, analyze the entire market to estimate how many books do I need to print. You didn't need a physical book distributor anymore. So you didn't need access to all of those systems. The thing is that you have access actually to the exact same systems as a publisher has. And it's not really a big invention that you print one book at a time instead of 1,000 books at a time. So what we perceived as something very new with print on demand, I've come to realize that it's the same wine in the it's not really that big of a change. The reason why we have thought that we needed a publisher, because we needed the skills, and we thought that's how you get it into the bookstores. You need a publisher for that, and there's some truth in that. That you need to know how to convince the physical bookstores to have your book, and it really has to do with a return policy. And there's no return policy on print on demand, so you still need both systems if you're going to have your book everywhere. But what's happening now is that you can actually skip entirely any intermediary between you and the reader. So you can go directly to the readers, and this is the huge change that's happening in Web3. And I think it might be useful if I explain what Web3 is real quick, because it can be a very complex description, but it can also be very simple. So it's called Web3 because there was a Web 2 and a Web 1 before that. So Web 1 is back when we first had the internet. So back in the 90s, or even in the 80s for some, the whole world opened up to us, and we had access to information from everywhere in the world. It was incredible. We didn't need to rely on waiting for the next quarter when we could get that Japanese magazine in order to find that information that about our very special interest that was only in Japan or something like that. Now the whole world opened up, and we could get access any information, but as readers. So it was companies and bloggers who were creating all of that content for us, and we could read that. Huge step, huge step. Then came social media. So that's Web 2. Social media changed that who's creating the content. Now everybody are creating content, but we don't control that content. And just to kind of nail that point so you never forget it, in September, I lost my Facebook account, my Instagram account, and my Messenger because I was hacked. And I've not been able to either get them back or even create new ones with a new email, a new phone number. So this is the amount of control that we have as users of social media. I've heard those stories before. I never imagined it would happen to me, but it did. And I had done nothing wrong. I was just hacked. People stole my money. What the trust in these intermediaries, and it's not just social media platforms, it's also publishing platforms. People are wondering, Amazon really paying me? How do I know that's how many books were sold? I don't know. I don't get the names of who they're sold to. I have no way of knowing if this data is correct. I don't think that their reputation can handle that they're not honest about these things. But there are people who don't trust those systems. We don't trust banks anymore either. It takes forever to send money across the world, and they would all charge a huge amount of fees before the money even arrives. So there's a general sense among people that all of this centralization is no good. We don't trust these systems. We find them. We don't have any influence on the rules of how things are gonna work. So, for example, I don't really decide how the royalty distribution should be for my book. I have to go with whatever the platform is offering me. But in Web3 is decentralized, a decentralized internet. So instead of all of this data and all of the processes and all of the decisions being made in by very few people and in very few places, it's distributed among thousands and thousands of computers, and it's mathematical algorithms that are processing data. And because all of these processors are paid we pay a fee when we use it, a small fee. So if I create something for Web3, I will pay a small fee for having it registered on this new internet. And that fee goes to the person who processes it the quickest. So these computers that are the quickest, so there's a built-in system of making this much faster. So it's all built on blockchain technology, and unfortunately, people think it's either new, which it's not. The development started in 82, so it's not new. It's been developed over many, many years. How many decades is that? Four? Going to almost 5?
That's a bit scary when we start talking. Yeah, 4 decades.
Yes. So it's not new, and unfortunately, many connect blockchain with Bitcoin and speculation and opportunities that want to make a quick buck. But that's not what blockchain is. Blockchain is the technology that handles and processes the data. And it's a very secure system. And the huge difference is that the content creator is the owner. And it's all documented in the second that we register it on the blockchain. It is very clear, very hard to tamper with documentation that I own that little block in the chain. So it's an internet that is a chain of blocks. And your book can be a block. on the blockchain, so that when I have created it and I own it, I can sell that block to someone else. But the person who buys that NFT book will also be able to sell it to someone else. And as the creator, this is not how it is now in Web 2. When I get money the first time my book is sold, but if you buy my book and you sell it to someone else, I don't get paid a second time. But and the value of the book is the same, but the sales platform does. But in this new world, there's a secondary market for books, so that when somebody resells my book, I will get a royalty again if that's how I've set up the system. And the really interesting part in that is that this means that, no, I need to tell one more thing first. Also, when it's in the form of, it's called an NFT, a non-fungible token. Nobody understands those words, but imagine just a book with a digital ownership. So when when somebody buys this from me, they will pay with their digital wallet, and it's not the one we have on our phone now. Most of us, it's a new digital wallet. It could be something called MetaMask, for example. So you have a wallet number, and you pay with that wallet number. But you also have, if you buy my NFT, you would have that NFT in your wallet. So it means that when you buy it's completely transparent system. So if you buy my book and you resell it, I will still be able to know which wallets are now holding my NFT, my book, who owns that NFT. And I can then drop more goodies into those wallets. For example, if I created a course called NFT for Authors, I could put that, so you bought the book, but you now get the course just because I want to. And why would I do that? Because I can choose whether I want to have a strategy that would put some incentive that you hold your NFT, or that it circulates because every time I get paid. So the more people will expect me to deliver more value. So it's about the relationship between the author and the reader that completely changes. I now have to think about, do I want a long-term relationship with the same readers? Do I want them to be ambassadors and deeply engaged, maybe even investors in my business through the NFTs as well? Do I want that type of relationship, or do I want as many books to circulate as possible every time, paying me royalty forever? There's no end to it. It's forever. And the great thing is that it happens within 10 minutes when it's traded on the blockchain from one wallet to another wallet. It's programming. There's no people who are handling it. So it takes a second and then it's in my wallet. So I don't have to wait 4 or 5 months like I do with a publisher, for example. You can take
or
forever
long,
before you
or
get your
longer,
money.
right?
Or even longer,
or
more than a year sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, how exciting is that to know that? I mean, if you think back, I'm thinking about my apartment block, and the number of we have a library, a public library that everybody just puts their read books in, pop it into the little library, and there's a sharing thing going on, and like you say, that author, even though the content and the value that they share within that book has not changed, it has not diminished, but they're now sharing it with somebody else. 10 people could have read that book, and that publisher, that author has not been paid. Whereas in this environment, that creates that level of transparency and opportunity for ongoing revenue growth for that author over, forever. Forever.
Yes.
And just creating, like you're talking about, creating a very intimate relationship with the reader. And I suspect that comes from, you really thinking about that at the beginning of the process of, what do I want to do here? What was my intention? What am I trying to achieve with this? And what sort of relationship do I want living with others? And if it is a long-term one, you're thinking about that, in your sense as a business strategist, as to how can I make the best of this relationship so that it becomes fruitful and bears fruit for a long period of time. I mean, I think that's super exciting. So when we talk about it from this perspective, let's kind of rewind a little and help people to understand, you know, the sorts of things that they could do or they could start thinking about to start even taking their concepts and their ideas and turning it into a book. What are some like shortcuts, hacks, quick ways of people being able to do that? Because all of this has been really the learning curve, and the speed to market has really been shortened, hasn't it?
It has definitely. So there was a little bit of the audio just jumped a little. So I
So
think
that's,
you are asking about the beginning of the process.
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah,
think
the
the
beginning of the
first.
process. What do they need to do?
I think that the first thing is to be clear on the positioning of your book. If you're going to use this book to attract clients, you need to be clear on what's your expert position, and also to know where's there a sweet spot in the market. So know which other books are there and how your book is going to be different from that. I create what I call a fake book proposal. So we pretend we want to sell this to a publisher. So that means you need to be very convincing, and you really need to dive deep into your uniqueness and give it some soul and some something that's closely related to you as a brand, but also to the people that you want to attract to your business. I think there's a tendency to say that, but my book is for this group of people, but it's also for them. For example, it's for employees and for executive managers, but they don't read the same books. They don't need the same language, and also it's just too broad. So narrowing down and niching down. Book strategy is very similar to business strategy. That's the short
Yeah.
version of that. So once you're very clear on that, I think that the most important point to make here is that you need to think about how your brain works when you're writing. If you start typing is no matter if you're fast, super fast typer, you cannot type as fast as you can either speak it or think it. And this means that you have your, I'm simplifying this way too much, but your right side of the brain is the creative part that wants the overview, wants to make the decisions and kind of design the task for the left side that's producing sentences, sequences. So a sentence is just a sequence of words, right? And that's production. That's something else from thinking about what your book is, and separating those two and be super prepared before you even start creating your text is you can save months on doing that alone. So I definitely recommend that you have a very, very, very detailed disposition. And I usually say that if you haven't decided everything that goes in that book, you're not ready to start writing. What happens is that you can start writing, then at some point you see your eye sees the words, that's images, speaks to the right side of the brain, starts generating idea, scrolling back and forth in the document. And you can do that until page 50, and that's when they call me. Then they get again.
No, I need some help. I've got off track and I'm not really sure how to get back, right?
Yeah.
And that's often what does happen when people do start to sit down and think, oh, I've got this concept or an idea for a book, and they just start writing, and all of a sudden it's gone in all sorts of different tangents. And what you're suggesting here is that we become very, very clear on what's going to be in, what's the concept, what's the topic, what's going to be in the book, where is it going to lead to, what's the outcome, so on and so forth, so that when it comes time for you to actually sit down and, you know, whether it's put pen to paper or speak it, it's really simple for you to be able to do it because your outline and your overview is already there, which I think is a really smart way of doing it.
People sometimes worry that it won't get perfect then, but we're applying the Pareto rule. That's the 80-20 rule. So we are spending in this doing this, we're spending 20% of the time getting it 80% right. And then we can spend quite a lot of time editing without even getting near the amount of time we would have spent if we haven't separated the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you also talk about, because a lot of people will spend, we mentioned this earlier, years and years sitting down trying to come up with their concept and actually write their book, and they go back and rewrite it several times before they're
Yes.
finished, and then they go find themselves that publisher, which then takes a lot longer. Now, I know you talk about the fact that you recommend people spend less time actually writing the book and a
Yes.
lot more time marketing the book.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, and why you think, why is that so important? Because that's often the case, right? People sit down, write these amazing books, have got, author status under their belt, but the book's just not selling.
No, and actually, there's a few points to that. The book is not becoming better of you spending more time writing. On the
Mm,
contrary, you lose your voice. So it's not only slower, but it doesn't become better. So that's why I recommend that when you have that detailed disposition, you just record the whole thing, and probably in a day transcribe it. There are auto translation tools as well. And then you can actually go from having your concept clear. That can take some time. Maybe it's in a day, because you're already very clear on your business and you're very clear on what you're teaching or your concepts. And then to a full, what I call it, a full first draft. That's kind of a, a transcription that is kind of written through, so cleaned
mm-hmm.
up, and the structure is kind of tightened a little. And so you can do that within a week. You don't
Yeah.
need a year. You can do it in a week. And this book, I wrote it in 35 days using that method, but also artificial intelligence. So now
Mm,
we can use artificial writing tools and just prompt you. For example, you say, I have written, if I made the fake book proposal, I would have short descriptions of each part of the book. For example, I can put that in one of these tools, and then I can say, write a chapter about this. I want you to mention this, and that from my detailed disposition. And then I can go grab my coffee while it types. It just starts typing the text on the screen, export it. I can go back and forth and say, could you rewrite that with more fun voice, for example? And it would
mm,
rewrite the same thing in another tone of voice. I could do that back and forth, or I can just export it or copy paste it to another document and just edit it there. But the thing is
mm,
that when you have when you have a business, every hour that you're spending on that book that you don't need to spend on the book, that doesn't really make the book better. It's just because you're struggling. Um, every hour is a non-billable hour. So what we want is really to get the idea clear, get it out of your head into some kind of text format, and then you can decide whether you're going to edit it or you're going to hand it over to someone to do it. So in
mm.
this way, it becomes very doable for everyone. No matter how busy they are, they can find the time for doing that.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you've mentioned this whole concept of AI now, because I mentioned this a little bit earlier. If people have been under a rock, particularly over the last few months, with the likes of, GTP coming out and a number of other AI tools. But, I mean, I have a little bit of a giggle, because, you're sort of thinking about the days where you're seeing, publishers with their or authors, I should say, with their
Yeah,
typewriters,
yeah,
manuscripts, and the
yeah,
manuscript comes out of the typewriter, and oh, that's no good, put it in the rubbish, and they're there for days and days on end. Whereas what you're
yes,
talking about here is, throw in some stuff, you've done your homework, of course, and that's the
yes,
really important piece to this, but then
yes,
utilizing that AI to do a lot of that heavy lifting for you, and off you
yeah,
go, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and you come back, and oh my gosh, I've
yeah,
got a chapter or two already created. I mean, we're living in such a different world now,
yeah.
particularly in this space, right, than we were even a decade ago, where it just wasn't available to us. So what tools, like when we're talking about AI, what are your favorite tools that you prefer to use from an AI standpoint?
Well, I think that if you also do blogging and you also do social media, for example, LinkedIn articles or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
Jasper is a really cool tool. But it's also quite expensive. Right now, it's $99 US per month. So it's
Mm-hmm.
also a bit of an investment. But you could say again, if you could be on LinkedIn with a new article every day because you had a digital assistant helping you out, that's worth 99 per month, right? But you could also use ChatGPT if you can get access, because there's so many people trying to use that server right now, so it can be difficult. But well, I did it today, and I just I had a teaching session earlier on today, and I was just showing how I asked it to create a sales page, and it became equally good as the one I had actually typed out myself. So you can definitely use one of those tools as well. You can also create images. So this image I created on something called Crayon. The quality of the image in terms of the technical quality was not high enough for printing. So I needed my designer to put it in another AI tool to optimize it. But the idea, the concept, I created it within like 10 minutes, asking it to create a human and a robot reading a book and use the colors of a sap ice cream. And it took 3 or 4 trials, and then I got the exact image as I had in my head. But I was not able to describe that to a designer or illustrator. So you can definitely create images for your book, even for your book cover as well. Of course, I also have a point in showing that in this type of book. So it might not be suitable for all books, but you can create book covers using some of these tools as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? So that leads me to wrap up today's session is, where do you think, this space of publishing is going, and what do you think that's going to look like in, say, 5 years from now?
I think even this year is going to be revolutionizing the publishing industry. And the thing is, it's not going to be the big publishers who are going to do it, because they are, of course, protecting their current income streams. This is what happens in all mature industries. They are not the ones to disrupt their own businesses. So those who are driving this right now is the book distributors and small tech startups. So they don't have a publishing background, they have a tech background. And of course, they have some book people on board, some of them, not all of them, because it has become a technology business instead of it's self-publishing. Amazon, when you publish on Amazon, they don't have an opinion whether or not you have a good book or not. They just want to make sure it's a book and not 5 receipts from your supermarket that you put into a PDF and call it a book. It has to be a book, but they don't read the book. They don't care if it's a good book or not. They don't, because it's print on demand. It doesn't take up any space. There's no risk for them in creating yet another web page. It's just give them more SEO.
Absolutely, and they leave that then up to the reader to determine whether or not it's a good book, right? They're actually putting that control into the hands of the end user.
Yes. So there are a few. This book is published as an NFT on something called Readle. So READL Readle.io. It's always dot something else now. IOAIXYZ. So I've published it there as an NFT. I've only published a few because I wanted to try all the other services also with NFTs. And you cannot take an NFT back. Once it's on the blockchain, it's documented on the blockchain. So you cannot take it back or take it off the market. It exists. I feel there are still a little bit of a way to go for these services to be perfect. So the Readle platform is actually very simple to use. Anyone can figure out to publish their book as an NFT there. It's just uploading an EPUB file and putting a little bit of information and choosing how many you want and what kind of digital art you want for that book. And that could be your book cover. So it's not complicated, but it still is it's still not like a full-blown web-free format. So it's more an NFT with a book than it is a book as an NFT. There are some platforms that are developing now, like you buy the NFT and that gives you a right. NFTs can be a book, but it can be all kinds of assets. It can be access to a membership. It's like a key. It can unlock things. When you show your wallet, I have this NFT, you get into an event, or you get into this membership, or you have a right with a dinner with the author, or however you want to use it. So all of these utilities, it's called, that an NFT can have. So a utility is, what can it do? And you can use it for voting, for owning, for many, many different things. And I walk people through that in the book. What are the potential uses of an NFT? But that's not really part of any of the author services. That's very simple. Just publish an EPUB. So that's definitely doable, but there's so much more potential. So if it's okay that I segue into that. So what I've done in the last part of the book is actually to help. I've created a framework that help people think about, because not everybody is ready for every part of Web3 yet. So most people don't even know what it is. So how do you know what strategy is good for you? So I've created a framework to identify and think about it's a very simple framework, 4 sentences, which one is the most likely the way that your audience thinks. And then I've broken that down into what would that mean you should do within the Web3 space. And then there's loads of ideas of how to do that. Some are easily implemented now. Many of them will be much easier during this year. So within 5 years, I think that publishing as an NFT is just another format, like on Amazon, on everywhere. They cannot afford not to go this way. People who are thinking about whether this is for them or not. No, I think this is just like futuristic, and this is too spacey for me. But it's not a matter of whether or not we are going to be part of Web3. We are all, that's why
already.
it's Web2, Web3. So what my recommendation is that if you take one takeaway from this session, it should be that whenever you meet content about this, you start educating yourself. So lean forward into this new world, and you will have huge advantages in terms of doing something and stand out with something that not everybody did already.
You can be part of that early adopter.
Yes.
And get into it nice and early, because like you say, it's not a matter of when is this going to happen. The horse is already bolted. It's gone. We're in it. So whether you get onto it and you start sort of trying to understand it and become an early adopter now, or you wait until it's here and it's mainstream and everybody knows about it, that's a choice that you have to make today. So I want to say, one of the things that I think everybody should do, because if you're listening to today's show and you're an entrepreneur, you're somebody who's got a podcast, you're a teacher, you're somebody who's got a voice that wants to share their message, you now know, you've heard it from Malene, you've heard it from me, Malene, that writing a book is really going to help you to position yourself as an expert. It's going to help you to level up and provide you with a level of authority and influence in your industry. And then taking it that one step further and putting it on platforms, utilizing some of the AI to help you do it quicker, to help you do it smarter, so that you can then spend more time on your actual business growing it, and then being able to utilize some of this Web3 technology that enables you to really get a leg up on any of your competitors. Now is the time to do it. So they are all going to be wondering, where do I get my hands on this book? Because now that you've given them, a taste of not just what's coming, but what's actually already here, I'm sure they're going to be chomping at the bit to want to know a lot more about it. Where can they go to get their hands on the book, Malene?
Well, it's available on Amazon in all markets, and it's both as a paperback, a hardback, and also as an ebook. There will be an audiobook. When I start coughing, I will create the audiobook. And it's also available on Readle. Readle.io as an NFT. So if you want to lean forward into it, I've set the price super, it's as low as I could get away with, so that because I wanted it to be something people don't know. But if I want to buy an NFT, what NFT? Yeah, well, you could buy a book. So now there's a book. You can use that as just for practice of using a wallet and buying something that is from the Web3 world. Um, if it's okay that I mention also that if you want to stay updated, because this is moving so fast that I even felt I had to put in the forward that there would be a second edition.
Mm-hmm.
It moves so fast, and I keep my community updated with this. So on goosebump.pop for publishing, no, sorry, goosebump.world, you can actually get a free access to a part of the community where you can stay updated on these things. So you will know which new services are there and how is that how is this developing.
All right, let me just pop that into, I'm just going to pop that up onto the screen so that everybody's got that. All right, so goosebump.world, you'll get free access to Malene's community. Now, when they get to goosebump.world, is there anything else that they need to type in to be able to find you? Where do they go from there?
No, this is a platform created on Circle, so it's a community platform, and it goes directly. And there's no login or anything. When you enter, you can choose to log in if you want to get those notifications, but you can actually enter to look around without doing that.
Awesome. Well, I think that, from today's show, guys, one of the things that I think you should absolutely do is go and check out, or firstly, get Malene's book so that you can read and you can get yourself up on what's actually going on in the Web3 world as it pertains to publishing. And, over the next couple of months, even the next week, you could have your own book published and actually have it ready and available on the NFT and blockchain technology. So I want to say thank you so much for your expertise and your knowledge and being so sharing with what you now know about the Web3 world. I think this is revolutionary when it comes to what we as entrepreneurs need to be doing, how we stay ahead of the game. I think 2023 is going to be, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe right now, particularly in the space of AI. And I think if entrepreneurs, if we can stay up to date with that, that really is going to give you the edge. So I want to say thank you very, very much for being an amazing guest. I'd love to have you back at some point. Maybe we can talk about the sequel of the book that you've got now, because as you say, this particular space, it's updating all the time. There's always new technology, new things, and it is shifting at a very rapid pace. So to keep on top of that, Malene is the woman we need to be going to. She's the one that was going to keep up to date with everything. And if you join her community, you too will be able to be up to date, and she'll give you all the lowdown on what's going on in the Web3 world. Thank you very, very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you. All right, guys, I'm going to see you again on another episode of The Unlocked Show. As I always say, go and live your life unlocked. As I've said, I'm traveling around with my family, still able to do the show, living my life unlocked, because I want to be able to get out and do the things and enjoy this beautiful planet and world that we live in. So you too go and do the same. And I'll see you again next time on another episode of The Unlocked Show, Wednesdays and Fridays, 10 a.m. Brisbane time. Until then, have a fantastic week. Bye for now.